Sediment transport in the open channel. Sediment transportation in the open channels takes place in three different phases. You will have the erosion zone, then the transportation, and finally the zone in which the sediments will deposit. All of these three zones are very important considering different hydraulic structures and hydraulic phenomena. So in this chapter, we will briefly review about the process of the sediment transportation, and for that we will start on the discussion on the basic properties of the sediments and the water. So defining the sediment, it is any particulate matter that can be transported by the fluid flow and which will eventually is deposited as a layer of the solid particles on the bed or at the bottom of the water body. Sediment can be classified on different bases, but the generic categories of the sediments are gravel, sand, silt and clay, and all of these different categories are responding differently to the water. Some of them will stay mostly to the bed of the river, while some of these will remain in suspension as silt and clay, and as you know that sand will cover a sufficient distance when they are transported by the channel flow. So different categories of the sediments will respond differently to the channel flow. We will further discuss the classification of the sediments in detail. Now we will discuss some properties of the water and sediment, and it is important to notice that why we are considering the properties of these two. So it should be very clear that sediments and water will deal with the interrelationship. So as the sediment is moving in the water, so their properties are interdependent, and we will discuss some properties which are general for these two, and then we will particularly discuss these properties for the sediments. So we will discuss some basic terminologies. Defining the density, it is the mass per unit volume. It is rho, which is m over v. Next is specific weight. It is gamma, and it is defined as the weight per unit volume. The relation between the gamma and rho is gamma is rho into g. Next we have the specific gravity. It is a ratio of the specific weight of the given material to the specific weight of the water at standard temperature, and that is 4 degrees centigrade. For the water, the specific gravity then will be 1 because it is a standard material, and the average specific gravity for the sediment is 2.65. So just as a review, you know that the material which are lighter than the water, they will have the specific gravity less than 1, and the materials which are heavy than water, they will have the specific gravity more than 1. So as the specific gravity of the sediment is 2.65, so it is this times heavier than the water. Now next we will discuss some terms in which we can define the size of the sediment, and the first term is the nominal diameter. It is the diameter of the sphere having the same volume as that of the particle. So as you know that particle is not necessarily having any regular shape. So we are defining the diameter of the particle similar to the diameter of a sphere, provided that the considered diameter of the sphere or the considered sphere will have the same volume as that of your concerned particle. So you will consider that the sphere and the particles are having the same volume, and in that case the diameter of the sphere will be the diameter of the particle. So it is termed as nominal diameter. Next way to define the size of the particle is through the sieve diameter. It is the diameter of the sphere which is equal to the length of the side of a square sieve, opening through which the particle can just pass, and as an approximation the nominal diameter and the sieve diameter, they are same. Now next we have the fall diameter, and it is related to this fall velocity. So we can define these two one by one. So I will first define you what is the fall velocity. If you consider any fluid which is filled in a vertical column cylinder of infinite extent, and if you just put a sphere of the known diameter or known mass to fall freely in that fluid, which is in your case water. And initially the velocity of the sphere will increase suddenly, because in that case the gravity forces are more, and the resisting forces, which are the force of buoyancy and the drag force, they are slightly increasing. So initially you will see that the velocity will suddenly increase, and then it will start to decrease, and it will attain a certain high value. It is a certain high value because after that it will not further increase. So that maximum value of the velocity which your sphere or which your particle will attain when it is falling freely in a standard liquid, which is water in this case, that is the fall velocity. And the diameter of the sphere which you have considered in this case, the diameter of that sphere is the fall diameter. So this is the fall diameter. It is the diameter of the sphere that has a specific gravity of 2.65 and has the same terminal fall velocity as the particle when each is allowed to settle one in a still distilled water. The standard fall diameter is determined at a water temperature of 24 degrees centigrade. And if you define the fall velocity, it is the average terminal settling velocity of the particle falling alone in a still distilled water of the infinite extent when the fall velocity is measured at 24 degrees centigrade. Now further we have the angle of repose. It is basically not applicable to a single sediment particle, it is applicable to a bulk of the particles. So it is basically that angle of the slope which is made with the horizontal line, and it is for the given material under the condition of the incipient sliding. It means that it is at maximum angle of the slope with the horizontal up till which your heap of the material can maintain its angle. Okay, so after that it can start sliding down. So that this is the angle of the repose. The next property is the porosity. It is the measure of the volume of the voids per unit volume of the sediment, and it is simply VV over VT, where VV is the volume of the voids and VT is the volume of the sediment. Volume of the void can be calculated by simply subtracting the solid volume from the total volume of the sediment. So it is given to the porosity. Next we have the viscosity. It is the internal friction which is offered by the fluid to flow, and the causes are different in case of the liquids and in case of the gases. So it is a degree to which a fluid will resist the flow under an applied force. In case of the liquids, the viscosity is basically due to the intermolecular attraction, while in case of the gases, the viscosity is due to the molecular momentum exchange. Both liquid and gases will respond differently as you vary the temperature depending upon the main cause of the viscosity in them. So if you just write down the equation for the viscosity given by the Newton, so that is tau is proportional to du over dy, where du over dy is the velocity gradient, and in this case this mu is the constant which is your dynamic viscosity. So it is your viscosity mu which is under consideration. Now you can further write down the viscosity in terms of the kinematic viscosity, and that is the ratio of the simple dynamic viscosity to the fluid density. So that is nu, which is the ratio of mu and rho. Now this table summarizes some basic properties of the water, which are usually considered when you are studying the phenomena of the sediment transport. So you can see over here you have the temperature, and respective to each value of the temperature you will have the density, specific weight, dynamic viscosity, and the kinematic viscosity. So you can see that at 4 degrees centigrade the density of the water is maximum, and so is the specific weight. So before and after that you will see a decrease in the values, and this is a particular behavior for the water. And similarly you can study the effect of the variation of the temperature on the dynamic and the kinematic viscosity. Now we will discuss some properties which are particularly for a single sediment particle, and you can see that this figure shows a random particle, and as I have discussed earlier, it will not have any regular shape. It is of an irregular shape, and this size is basically referring to this diameter. Further, we will have the mass density, specific weight, and specific gravity. Now, size is the most basic and readily measurable property of the sediment, and it has been found to be sufficiently describe the physical property of a sediment particle for many practical purposes. The size of the particle can be determined by the sieve analysis, and the US standard sieve series is shown in this table. So this table shows the sieve numbers and the respective openings in millimeters and in inches. So sieve number 4 means that the opening is 4.76 millimeter or it is 0.187 inch. So you can simply do the sieve analysis. The particles which are resting on a certain sieve set or a certain sieve size, it means that they are having that size equals to or greater than that sieve. That is why they are not passing it further. So in this way you can classify your whole mass of the sediment into different fractions of the sizes. Further, this table is given which further elaborate the classification of the sediment in terms of their class names and their sizes. So you can see that you are having the US standard sieve numbers which are related with the sieve sizes in millimeters, micrometer or in inches, and you can see the class names. So every name is having a defined size, so that is shown over here. Now next property of the sediment particle is shape. So it is having irregular shape, and the shape refers to the form or the configuration of the particle regardless of its size or composition. One shape factor is given by Corey, and it is c over square root of AB. Now A, B and C are the lengths of the longest, intermediate and shortest dimension. So you will locate three dimensions. One will be the longest, one will be the shortest, and one will be the intermediate. So their lengths are referred as A, B and C. So if you just put the values in the formula, you will get this shape factor. The standard shape is sphere, and for the sphere all the three dimensions are equal. So in that case the shape factor is 1. So for sphere it is 1, and more variation in the shape or more variation in the side's length will give you a reduced shape factor. So naturally variable quartz particle will have an average shape factor of 0.7. Now next property is density. We have already discussed that density is the mass per unit volume, and density of the sediment particle refers to its mineral composition and usually the specific gravity. Water-based sediment particles are primarily composed of quartz, and they have the specific gravity of 2.65. Next is the fall velocity. We have already defined what is fall velocity, and further we can see that it reflects the integrated result of the size, shape, surface roughness and specific gravity and viscosity of the fluid. So fall velocity will entirely depend upon different factors, which are your water related factors and the factors which are primarily for the sediment as well. So it will depend upon their interrelation, that at which velocity the particles of the sediment will start to move in the water. Fall velocity of the particles can be calculated from a balance of the force of buoyancy and the resisting drag force. So this is what I have already discussed with you, that it is a velocity which is attained when these forces will come in balance. So you can simply compare these two forces. So this is a general equation for the drag force, and this is the general equation for the force of buoyancy. You can simply compare these two to find out the fall velocity. Fall velocity is the factor in this equation of the drag force. So all the factors in this equation are known to you except this CD. This is the drag coefficient. So if you know CD, you can further equate these two equations to find out omega, that is the fall velocity. Also, this is the equation for the force of buoyancy. Now you have different ways through which you can find out the CD value, and once you have CD, you can equate these two equations and you can get omega. Now we will have a brief discussion on how you can find out the CD factor. So the first consideration is the theoretical consideration for the drag coefficient CD for a very slow and steady moving sphere in an infinite liquid at a very small Reynolds number. The drag coefficient can be expressed as Fd is 6 mu pi r omega. So you are having this equation for the laminar flow where the Reynolds number is very less. So if you put this value of Fd in the equation 1. No, sorry, if you further simplify this equation and using the Navier-Stokes equation, you simplify this and you will get this factor CD, that is 24 over RE. Now this equation is applicable for the very low Reynolds number, that is less than 1. Now this is your factor CD which is coming from this equation. If you just put this value of CD in your previous equation of FD, you will get this simplification. Now if you just compare this equation of FD with your equation of force of buoyancy in the previous slide, you can rearrange the equation after comparing it and you will get the equation for omega. So this is your equation for omega by this simplification for CD. Now in this case D is the sediment diameter and this equation is applicable on the sediment diameter which is less than or equal to 0.1 millimeter, and also your Reynolds number should be less than 1 for this CD. Now in the above formula you also need the value of nu. This nu is the kinematic viscosity and it is the function of the water temperature. So this equation is given which will give you the value of nu at the given temperature. So you know that if you are given with any value of the temperature, you can easily find out it from the table of the properties, or you can interpolate it between the two given ranges. So this equation is giving you basically that value using the interpolation concept. Now further modifications are given for factor CD. Ornstein in 1927 included the inertia term in the solution of the equation, and he gave the equation for CD as this. So if you are using this modification given by Ornstein, you can put this value of CD in the equation of FD, and then after comparing you can find out the relation for omega. Also one modification is given by Goldstein, and he provided a more complete solution of the Ornstein approximation, and the drag coefficient becomes this equation. Now what is the advantage of this is that this equation is applicable for the Reynolds number up to 2. So you have a modification, in the range of the Reynolds number on which you can apply this equation. So it is applicable up to the Reynolds number 2. Now this graph shows the relationship between the drag coefficient and the Reynolds number, which is determined by several investigators. So you can see different curves shows the behaviors or the values given by different researchers. So some are the experimental data points and some are the empirical data points. It is further mentioned that if your Reynolds number is more than 2, then you have to carry out the experimental results to find out the correct value of CD, and for that one experimental equation is given by Rubies in 1993. He introduced a formula for the computation of the fall velocity for gravel, sand and silt particles. For the quartz particles with the diameter greater than 1 millimeter, the fall velocity can be computed by this equation. So in this equation, the diameter should be more than 1 millimeter, and F is a constant and it is 0.79 in this case. And the temperature should be in between 10 and 25 degrees centigrade. Now if your particles are having smaller size, in that case your F will not be constant 0.79, it will be computed through this equation. Okay, and if your particles are having the size more than 2 millimeter, in that case the fall velocity omega will not be from this equation, it will be from these equations. So depending upon which unit you are using, it will be this in FPS and it will be this equation if you are working in SI system. So you have to select the equation based upon the range of the size of the particles with which you are working. Now this table again shows the summary of the results given by different researchers. Along Y you have the drag coefficient and along X you have the Reynolds number. So it summarizes results given by different researchers. Now we will discuss the factors which can affect the fall velocity. So those are relative density between the fluid and the sediment, fluid viscosity, sediment surface roughness, sediment size and shape, suspended sediment concentration, and strength of the turbulence. Most practical approach is the application of the figure which is given over here when the particle size, shape factor and the water temperature are given. So you can see in this figure, along y you have the sediment diameter or sieve diameter, along x you have the fall velocity, and in between you have three different curves which are for three different shape factors. And if you have the sieve diameter, you know the shape factor, and further you know the water temperature, so you can select your corresponding curve and you can find out the fall velocity using that curve from this graph directly. So this graph uses these particular factors in giving you the fall velocity.